Hey YouTube, it's Robert Hall, and in today's video we're going to go over an exterior composite that I recently completed. My channel is sponsored by Adorama, which buys me the time to create these type of videos without the influence from any specific camera brand. I personally shop at Adorama for their great deals on a wide selection of products, as well as their support of those products down the road. So if you end up interested in any of the products discussed or used in this video, then please use the links in the description below. So I've showed you guys lighting composites before, but today's video is going to be on a new subject matter. Before we continue, I want to tell you guys that this is not something that I typically do. Exterior photography, building photography, architecture is just not something that I do a lot of, so I don't want to promote myself as an expert. The opportunity to do this exterior photography just came from my position at the university, in which they asked me, hey, can we get a good shot of this building? And I decided that I really wanted to try this out because I've seen this type of photography done before, and I've applied this type of technique to other instances, like my lighting composite video featuring 9 different subjects, which you can watch more about up here because that is really applicable, especially all the tips on keeping your camera steady, to what we're doing today. But obviously this one has to do with photographing the exterior of a building and not people, so the approach was a little bit different. So first let me explain why I didn't want to just photograph the exterior of the building in a single shot and edit it. The biggest reason is that the best looking side of this building was from the south, so shooting into the north, and the sun never really illuminates the front of the building. So just doing this in the daytime results in a really bright sky with a very dark face to the building, which just doesn't draw any attention. So at a minimum, I knew I'd be doing like some type of exposure blending, maybe HDR, something like that to get this done. But I decided, you know, I've never had this opportunity before. Let me really challenge myself as well as my editing skills and really try to lean into this project. So I requested we start this shoot 1 hour before sunset. That way I had an hour during daylight to capture all the assets I needed of the inside of the building, as well as the twilight time right at the end of the shoot to try and capture an interesting sky. We did have to reschedule this like 3 times simply because all we had was cloudy days and rainy days, and I really wanted partly to mostly cloudy. Because at sunset time, when there's a lot of clouds, just leads to those really beautiful skies that get a ton of colors in them. So the first thing I did was choose my position. Now I shot this with the Sony A7R III and the Sony 12-24 f4G lens at f5.6. That 12-24 millimeter lens is so wide that anything past 5.6, the entire scene is really sharp. Now when I first chose my composition, I was really tight on the building, but then I decided to actually zoom out a little bit because there was no way for me to get higher, to get the camera much higher and capture this image and get really straight lines of the building. So I shot wide, knowing that later in post-production I would have the flexibility to adjust the perspective of the image and not lose any critical areas of the building. I set my camera up on a tripod, tried to make sure everything was straight, that I had the composition that I needed before I started any shooting, and chose a focal length of around 15 millimeters. First thing I did was get 4 exposures of the building at varying levels of brightness, so about a stop overexposed all the way down to 2 stops underexposed. I just wanted to make sure that I had everything I needed for the exterior of the building, that way I could blend them later in post. From there, I used a single light to accent both the interior and the exterior of the building. We started by having the assistant go around with a single AD200 with the fresnel head with a magbeam and a half CTO gel. She walked around the interior of the building and went in every room, and we fired the flash to illuminate the room. And I typically just had the magbeam pointed at the ceiling, that way it would bounce off the ceiling and then kind of light the whole room. And I chose the magbeam here simply because it was pretty much the only thing I had for an AD200 that would give me the power that I needed to balance with the outdoor exposure that I was trying to get. Now I have to say, using the flash that far away, about 150 feet away, and through all those building materials, all that concrete, all that glass, all those walls, it was an absolute nightmare trying to get that thing to trigger. Basically, the AD200 had to be visible in the window in order for the X Pro trigger to fire it. This was the first time that I ever had an issue with triggering the AD200 at a distance, but I've never worked this far before, so I wonder if a higher end lighting system would have been more consistent at firing, because there were times where we would take 10 shots in a row and we couldn't get the flash to fire. We had to keep on inching it more and more visible in the window just to get it to fire. So after about 20 minutes or so, we had a shot of every window being well lit, with the interior well lit. You might wonder why I didn't just turn on all the lights in the building, especially since we were already there during sunset, and then just capture that glow from there. And the reason is pretty simple. That's because there was inconsistent lighting throughout the building. Either they had inconsistent brightness or inconsistent light temperatures, which would have resulted in me just having to go in and manually mask out windows to correct the lighting anyways. So I figured, why not just get a clean shot and also be able to control the position of the light with using flash. So once we got done with the windows, I ditched the mag beam, I ditched the warm gel, because now that we're on the exterior of the building, I wanted it to blend in more, whereas I wanted the interior to have a glow. So the exterior, all I used was the AD200 with the fresnel head, and I lit a little bit of the landscaping, but the three things that were really important to light were the awning in the middle of the building. I just thought that that was a cool focal point. Then the sign out in front of the building, as well as the text on the front of the building with the name of the building. Wanted to draw emphasis to all of those. And after we captured all that, I began working on the sky. So I just waited for the sky to get interesting. There were some points where I thought it was okay, and I grabbed some safe shots of it during the shoot. But what I really wanted was those wispy clouds, kind of the motion in the clouds. And so I really wanted it to get a little bit darker. So once sunset came around, everything worked according to plan. We got a really nice warm glow, as well as some pinkish purple clouds over a nice deep blue sky. But I didn't just want those frozen clouds. I wanted it to be really wispy, kind of dreamy looking clouds. So one of the things I did here was took off my lens very carefully, not to screw with the focal length or the manual focus. And then I put on a 6-stop ND filter. That way I could get to a 30-second exposure, which captured some motion in the clouds. Now I actually ended up using 2 different exposures for the sky because the clouds that we did have kind of moved across the frame. So I used the same clouds over 2 positions. That way I could kind of fill the frame with those really nice lines above the building. And that was it. That was the capturing process for all of those assets. So now it gets into the editing process, which is by far where most of the work of this type of shot is. So I loaded all of these files into a stack, and then I kind of ordered them in the way that I planned on using them. So I had the sky as the bottommost layer, followed by the exterior shots of the building, followed by the window shots, followed by the exterior accents. So in my exterior shots of the building, I would mask out the sky. That way it would show the sky below it from the shots that I actually wanted to use during sunset. And then I repeated that process for every single individual window, and then all those exterior accents as well. Now, if you guys are already understanding this post process, I don't want to bore you with too many details in this video, but if you're interested in just seeing the entire process of this post production, then I've got that video linked in the description below, where I just go through and do everything so that you can see it. You can play it along at whatever speed you want to follow and see what you can take away from it. But again, this isn't something I do regularly, so I don't want to promote my editing process as if it's the best way to go about this. But if you're curious, that link's in the description below. Alright guys, so that was my pre, during, and post process for capturing this exterior building and taking it to a level that I had not previously accomplished. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos, and until next time, keep on shooting.